Hello, welcome back to Ycft. We are dipping our toes into the Conjuring Universe for the first time, and this won't be the only time this year because the film we're talking about is getting a sequel, which may or may not be out at this point and may or may not have a video made on it. This is the beginning of August for us. And we will be talking about The Conjuring as well because of the 10th anniversary, but this week we are talking about The Nun, released in 2018, directed by Corin Hardy. Have I got it? I've been struggling to remember that name all day. It's the fifth film in the Conjuring universe.
Yeah.
I did not like this film when it came out.
No, you didn't.
The character of the nun was established in The Conjuring 2 and had a brief cameo in Annabelle Creation, the second Annabelle film. I think she literally just appears in a photo.
Yeah.
People seem to either love this or hate this, but as of today, I believe it is still the most financially successful film of the Conjuring universe, and hence why we are getting a sequel. Obviously, without the pandemic, we would have already had a sequel. A sequel was greenlit very quickly.
I just want to say, I love this movie.
Alright, I've seen this 3 times. I saw it in the cinema, and I really didn't like it. I watched it with you during the pandemic.
Days.
I warmed to it slightly, still didn't really like it. I watched it for this, and I've warmed to it a bit more. There's a lot that I really like about this movie. There's a lot that I really don't.
It's flawed. I'm not denying that it's flawed. Every single time I've seen this movie, I have a lot of fun with it. And we'll get into reasons why it's flawed, why in a lot of ways it works. But it's been kind of like an ongoing point of contention for us.
Yeah.
In
it's
these
like
last
me watching this movie is like being
years.
kicked in the balls so many times that I just stop feeling it and decide that I'm not bothered by it.
I just accept The Nun for what it is. And
So,
I have fun with it.
when was this film set? Was it
It's set in 1952.
1952, so yeah, post-war. So this is the earliest in the Conjuring timeline.
Chronologically, yeah. So the movie starts in this very isolated part of Romania, this cloistered convent of nuns, of which at this point there's only 2 left. One of whom, the elderly nun, is killed by some kind of off-screen presence, leaving us with just the one, who's very frightened, alone in this castle, seemingly alone in this castle anyway, and she commits suicide.
Which is a sin.
Which is obviously
Which is
a
important,
sin. She asks God for forgiveness before she hangs herself out of one of the top windows of the turrets of the castle. But it's obvious that she's done this to escape the clutches of something of which we don't actually see at this point in time. But I will say it's a pretty solid opening.
It is a solid opening.
I think it's very well done. It's very effective.
My problems with the film start later.
Yeah, like so far so good with the opening of this movie. I think that the score is really nice too. And obviously like the 50s setting, we'll dissect this a lot, but the 50s setting I think lends a really nice kind of Hammer-esque sort of backdrop to The Nun. One of the reasons why I love it as much as I do.
We're then introduced to our 2 leads. It's about a week or so later.
Yes.
So we have Vera Farmiga's sister.
Yeah.
What was her name? Tessa?
Well, Taissa. I'm just going to pronounce it as Tessa. I don't know if that's correct, but Tessa.
What was the name of her character?
Sister Irene.
Sister Irene.
She's a nun sort of in the making.
A nun in training. And Father
Burke,
played by
Damien Bashir.
The Vatican sends Father Burke to this church.
Yes.
Or convent. Yeah, that's it. It's a convent.
It's a convent,
It's a convent. We got there eventually. Went from church to castle to convent. To investigate what has happened, and he is advised to take Sister Irene with him for unclear reasons. Not a lot of reasons that aren't insanely clear, and she isn't told why she is going to go with. Don't understand why they don't tell her. But, yeah. So they get there and they start investigating, seeing the weird goings on throughout this convent, the weird history that it has, and that there is a nun that doesn't belong, who haunts the corridors. Apparently, we don't see it that much. Haunts the corridors, causing mischief.
So I will also just backtrack quickly because Father Burke, he's been chosen to go to the convent to investigate specifically because he has a sort of a backstory with looking into sort of like spooky goings on within the Catholic Church. And I wrote down this note, which I'm quite proud of, is that he's kind of like a Catholic Mulder, you know, like Mulder and Scully from the X-Files.
I do really
that's
like
his thing.
I do like Father Burke. I think he's a
I like
he's a lot of
Burke
fun.
as well. Yeah. And by the way, the body of the nun who committed suicide is discovered by a guy called Franchi, who's a local to the area. He's obviously called it in. Word has reached the Vatican, and that kind of kickstarts the rest of the story in motion. So Burke and Irene arrive. They are met by, what is she called? Like the abbess, like the the head honcho nun. Can you tell we're not really religious? Don't really know the correct terms here. Who advises them that they can stay in part of the castle. Burke, because he's a man, he's not allowed to go into certain parts of the convent because it turns out there are still nuns. They can't talk to the nuns
now because essentially they're praying all night.
Yeah, you're not allowed to disturb them. But the important thing to note here is that the abbess confirms that there are other nuns still in the convent. It's still being used. And spooky shit goes on. It's haunted by a demonic nun.
Who we all know from the previous films to be Valak, the Defiler.
Yes,
so essentially
Marquis of Snakes.
Yeah, this is essentially the origin story for the creepy nun from The Conjuring 2. It was a very interesting character within that film, and obviously a lot of people took a liking to it. Like, one of the best scenes in The Conjuring Universe involves Valak, the corridor shot.
Mom. Who's that?
And the shadows walking around the office, up to the painting. It's perfect. I absolutely adored Valak's introduction. And it turns out that the reason it takes the form, I'll refer to it as it and they because it's a demonic force. It's not male or female.
Mm-hmm.
But I might slip up and call it her because it's a nun.
It's also played by an actress.
Yeah, what is her name?
Bonnie Aarons.
I'm going to go as far as to say, my biggest compliment is that she is a horror icon now.
Yes.
Only she can play this character. She has such a presence. She does a great job. Like,
she's
even though realistically she doesn't have that dialogue.
Doesn't matter. It's all in the face.
Yeah, the face, the movements.
All in, there's such a powerful face that she has. And, even when we were watching the making of it, with the way she just kind of, gets into character, she's great. Yeah, she is the nun at this point. No one else can play this character.
It took the form of a nun to blend in. And then must have just kind of kept it, must have enjoyed it.
I think it's also an element of mockery.
Yeah.
Potentially as well, taking the form of a religious, very pure figure.
One thing, I'm going to go with my biggest strength outside of Bonnie is the setting. Very few sets were actually kind of used for this. They filmed it on location in this amazing castles and a few other areas within Romania. And James Wan, who produced it, said that he wanted it to be a throwback to Gothic horror. And you can tell that setting is doing so much of the work for them. It's gorgeous, it's creepy,
absolutely
eerie. It's stuff that's so hard to replicate. It's really good. That I will appreciate, and just the setting is.
I love Hammer horror. We both are a fan of Hammer horror, and anyone who's watched any of the movies from 50s and 60s, like the old Dracula ones, the Frankenstein stories, they always tended to set them in some kind of Eastern European country. And obviously here we're in Romania, and we've got all of the traditional settings. We've got the castle, which is isolated. There's one or two scenes set in a little nearby tavern, and the locals are all very superstitious, and they believe that there's a curse upon the town and a curse on the castle, and I just I eat that shit up. I love Gothic horror. It's my favourite kind of horror movie. I love anything remotely supernatural, but the Gothic aesthetic is on top form here. So you got to give it points, regardless of what you think about this movie. If you think it's a bit illogical,
it looks really nice.
It looks stunning. Yeah, totally. It is effectively very creepy. In that
The Conjuring was a throwback to 70s haunted house movies. This is a throwback to Gothic
horror.
Hammer horror, and that it has so much going for it in that regards, and I think the nun within that environment, nicely lit. It's can't fault for the film for how it looks, and just really smart use of what they had.
We're spoiling this movie.
Spoiling this one. That I think anyone who's watching this is probably watching it in preparation for the Nun 2.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I am optimistic for the Nun 2. this convent was originally owned by some like rich madman who was a devil worshipper.
Yeah, like back in the I don't know how long ago.
It would have been the Crusade
era.
He was trying to summon Valak, and the Templar Knights stopped him. They put a convent on top of it.
Sealed the gate.
Sealed the gateway, and that is essentially why the convent is there, is to keep Valak trapped.
To keep the evil contained.
World War II happened, and the bombs kind of shook the abbey, and
the bombs have.
We describe it in so many ways now.
Yeah, the abbey, the convent, the castle, whatever it is. The bombs dropping have it's reopened the gateway. It's shaken the ground, and it's caused it to.
Yeah, the nuns are still praying. There's always someone praying
constantly.
Yeah, in the evening they have more of them praying, just desperately trying to keep Valak trapped. In the entire building is surrounded by crucifixes, so Valak can't leave, and that's essentially what it wants to do. It wants to leave. It wants to be a menace in the world, so that the Conjuring 2 can happen.
So yes, but so far it is thus contained to the abbey, to the convent, because the nuns are, they're doing a good job of keeping it at bay.
Yeah. Do you think Sister Irene is supposed to be related to Lorraine Warren?
I don't know. I mean, obviously,
there's a choice in casting sisters.
Maybe. I mean, it's not mentioned. I don't think it's mentioned in any of the Conjuring movies. It's not. It could be mentioned in the Nun II. To
be fair, we've had very few movies that revolve around Valak since this one.
Yeah,
So I can't think of a reason why it would crop up, and she is returning in the new one.
Yeah, I really like her. By the way, I love both Farmiga sisters. Like, oh my god, when we get to the Conjuring, we will talk about Vera Farmiga. But I think Tessa does a very good job here. I really like her. There's a genuine kind of innocence to her. We'll talk a bit about Burke in a minute, I guess. But yeah, I think she does a really good job.
Yeah, can I dive into what? I want to dive into some annoyances that I have with the film as a whole.
Okay.
And these, I guess, I have softened to this film over the years. I can watch it and I can enjoy it, but I just don't personally think it's a good movie because of annoyances. Reasons and annoyances. A lot of them do revolve around Valak and the lack of the nun throughout the film. The nun tends to, even though we see the nun kill someone at the very beginning, well, we don't see, but people die at the beginning of the film. The nun has ample opportunity to get rid of the problems of these newcomers. But what the nun tends to do is just creepy scene pop up. Ah! I'm just going to back away and disappear. All it does is scare. And even like Valak in the Conjuring 2 is actively trying to kill Ed. And I just don't understand why Valak won't just, for starters, straight off just kill Burke.
Okay.
And we know from watching the deleted scenes, there are loads of other scenes of Valak just around it, just in the background where our characters can't see him, but we can. And that's what I think it needed. I think we needed to see Valak stalk them. And it's just, I don't know why that stuff was good. There's one scene in particular which is really cool of Tessa walking through a columned room, and you got Valak, like the wonderful shots of like columns making things appear and disappear. Why was that cut? That feels really important. So yeah, I think we just needed more Nun in this Nun movie. But then you have essentially the big reveal of the Nun to Sister Irene, which is basically the same as the corridor shot from The Conjuring 2. So the shadow walking around. This time it's like all the way to a mirror. And I'm like, I get you want to reference like the famous shot that revealed your character, but it's not, you got to admit it's not as good. It's shorter. I have a big problem with that shot because I'm bored watching it because they don't do anything. They don't do anything interesting with it other than, if anything, it's less scary because what's in The Conjuring 2, the shadow walks behind a painting of itself. You got the hands that come around it. This one, it walks into a mirror and it's like, oh, I don't know. It felt a little bit lazy.
I understand what you're saying, and I can't even rebuff a lot of what you're saying, because you've always sort of said that a lot of your problems lie with the fact that you think that Valak is just
dumb,
a bad, like a dumb demon.
Yeah. I think they're written to be a bit dumb.
What I will say to that is, I think that traces back to The Conjuring 2, because we all know, anyone who's seen the movies know that knowing a demon's name gives you power. It gives you dominion over the demon. Tricky sentence to say. And obviously in Conjuring 2, the demon tells Vera Farmiga what it's called.
Well, it's like, how much does it tell? Does her abilities kind of...
No, she says at the end, she's like, you told me your name, and I wrote it down. And she scribbles it all over her Bible. She actually says, like, you told me your name. So, I'm sorry, like, I agree. I think there's more, like, there's worse demons out there.
Yeah.
But I do think that it was kind of seeds were sown in The Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
Your point about how there's a lot of room for sabotaging what Burke and Irene are trying to do. And in certain crucial scenes, the nun just kind of, like, takes a bit of a backdrop. But is an all-seeing kind of entity. So, you know, we said that Irene is a nun in training, and there's a really kind of crucial moment in the movie where she decides she's gonna, like, take her rights, or, you know, whatever, so she can become an actual, like, fully fledged nun. And at no point in that, you know, very important scene does Valak appear and sabotage it in any way. Valak just kind of stands to one side and lets it happen for no reason. You know, like, in my mind, that would have been a cool moment for Valak to, you know, show up and disrupt it, because obviously, you know,
yeah,
Irene being a fully fledged nun is going to have consequences. The scenes where, well, the famous one, I guess, where Burke is trapped underground.
All right, I'm going to defend it a little bit, because... Right, before I destroy it, I'm going to defend it, because I actually do think it's a really cool scene.
It's great.
I love whenever they go to the grave. I like when Frenchie kind of like leaves before eventually having to return to help. Like he gets creeped out in the graveyard. Yeah. It's really like it's proper Hammer, because you've got like the sitting fog and everything, and I love the graves that they've got bells on them. If anyone's heard of this,
which was an actual thing.
Which was an actual thing. The fear of being buried alive.
Just
they
in
put
case
a bell in there in case he gets stuck.
Ring that bell.
That's a really weird thing within history. Like, how often were people getting buried alive? Valak buries Burke alive, and I think it's really cool that it does that. It's such a horrific way to go.
Yeah. And
there's even a bit of a jump scare of Valak or some kind of demon coming up from behind him. So imagine he's like lying in the coffin.
On top of it.
I hop him around.
Yeah.
And he's ringing the bell. He's screaming. And Irene finds him. Thankfully finds the right grave. Valak teleported Burke there. That is a very powerful thing to do. Bear in mind, what? Consecrated ground?
Consecrated ground, yeah.
That's power. Never uses it again.
No.
And maybe it's like, you know, your special ability in a video game, like when you built up enough like combo points and you get to use that one ability. That's basically what this is. I'm going to teleport him. But why? You then had a hold of him. Why didn't you just kill him? What is the purpose of leaving him alive? The coffin Valak put him in was the person who tried to raise Valak's grave. And inside the coffin are books that he wrote on Satanism, like satanic stuff, or like, you know, that sort of dark stuff.
All that jazz.
I'm going to say the church has done here. Why wouldn't they destroy that? Like, let's be real. They should have burned.
The Templars at the time should have taken.
But also, so Valak put him in the one place which had the information to defeat Valak in it. But then Burke reads it, finds out the demon's name, and being someone who's done Exorcist before, should know the importance of knowing a demon's name. Does not use the demon's name. It's just dumb. Like, one thing I can forgive, but it's like, it adds up. It adds up and it infuriates me.
I know what you, like, the scene as it starts, like, on its own, it's a really cool scene. It's very well done. It's effectively creepy, and Irene has to come out and, you know, dig him up, and, you know, like, he's having to ring the bell. It's good. Like, it's tense and it's effectively creepy. But when you try and apply logic to it, that's when it kind of falls apart. And just kind of sticking with Burke for a minute as well, like, there are some... I think it does come down to the writing. Because, yeah, you just said that Burke he's a renowned exorcist. He's been chosen for this mission because he's used to dealing with, like cases
Strange
of the supernatural. And I think they say something like, oh, miracles, like he's a miracle worker or something like that. And
he's like a miracle debunker.
Yeah, he's a Catholic Mulder. He also has a bit of a backstory. He was involved in an exorcism several years ago of a little boy, and Burke botched it, and the little boy died. And that's something that has haunted Burke for all these years, and I think it's kind of implied he's got a bit of a drinking problem.
Yeah.
He's haunted by the memories of this little boy, Daniel, that he wasn't able to save. And aside from the fact that, there's a tortured priest with a terrible backstory, that in itself has become very cliche in religious horror movies, like that aside, I do think it was done quite lazily here, because we see a flashback of Daniel, and Valak takes the form of Daniel to torment Burke at several points throughout the movie. My issue is the fact that every time Valak appears as Daniel, Burke falls for it and seems to be very affected by it. And to your point that, this is an established guy who's been working exorcisms, he knows demons, he knows the supernatural. I find it hard to believe that Burke would, buy Valak's bullshit.
Yeah.
If anything, Burke should be like, bitch, I know Daniel is dead. This is not going to work on me. And it just didn't.
To build on that, this isn't in the deleted scenes, but in just the behind the scenes, it shows them filming that shot, and there's a version of the flashback with Daniel where Valak is there behind him, as if he was. There's reasons why I think that would work and not work. I think it'd be cool to show that the reason Burke is there essentially is because he's destined to be there. Essentially, it would make Valak a nemesis for him. But I think they cut it because maybe they realised, well, how was Valak there when he's confined to the Abbey? That's the only reason I can think of why they took that out. But it would make the Daniel part of it more important.
More important, because as it is, I think you could easily cut all that Daniel stuff out and it still works. I personally don't feel like Burke needed a tragic backstory. When I first met him, I wasn't really getting the guilty vibes, but as soon as it's mentioned, it's like, well, I can't ignore it now because it's here. I just don't think it's needed. I do also think it's just a very cliche trope at this stage. We watched the Pope's exorcism recently.
It's in there as well.
It's in there. Russell Crowe, he's got a
To be fair, I actually think the Pope's exorcist did it a bit better.
Probably, yeah. Well, it's more of a thing.
I think because it's not a child.
No. And they make more of it.
Yeah, they make more of it.
I totally understand, from Valak's point of view as a demon, you're going to do, you're going to manipulate your victim, you're going to play mind tricks on them, you want them to, you want to reduce them to a point of vulnerability. I just think it was, quite lazily, very clichély done.
Valak is smart enough to separate Burke and Irene.
Yeah.
And poses as the abbess. The head abbess. The head abbess?
The abbess. I think it's just...
Head, big honcho.
Yeah.
Poses as the big honcho, greets them when they arrive, and then later on, talks to Burke. And it's kind of revealed, it's nothing there, it's bones or something. It's this is still ample time for you to kill Burke.
Okay.
Valak, you are a Burke. That's a very British phrase. Again, the room, the room that they enter in is gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely gorgeous.
It is.
I give this film a lot of breaks purely for aesthetic.
Yeah, stunning.
I know that doesn't seem like I am.
You're warming to it with every rewatch.
I am. With every rewatch, I'm warming. I am warming to it, and I no longer think it's. Actually, I never thought it was the worst in the Conjuring universe. I think the first Annabelle film will always sit there. But over time, I actually think it might be better than The Devil Made Me Do It.
Mm-hmm.
But I've only seen that once. I think Ed and Lorraine might be keeping that up.
I need to rewatch it.
But I think a lot of the issues I have with this film could get resolved in the sequel. I just want the nun doing more creepy nun things. Just to be more present. Have more characters that the nun can interact with and scare. Have a plot that feels like it means something.
Yeah.
Which the sequel, from the trailer, looks like it might... Because to me, it feels like a revenge plot. But we have a lot of nuns in training, potentially, who... So the sequel could resolve all of my issues with this film, and I wanted to, because I enjoy the Conjuring Universe. I want the films to be good.
I'd like to give the movie a few more props, because there's I know we've talked about the aesthetic and the production design and how it's wonderful, and it definitely is, but there are a few things I think the movie does that are genuinely very well done.
It had the teaser trailer it did that made someone poop themselves.
Yes.
That's a real thing. I remember it.
I think it made multiple people poo themselves.
Sister, please. This way.
Hello.
Yeah, I think it had to be taken down.
It's the scene in the trailer where Tessa Farmiga's, like, she's in a corridor, isn't she? And like there's a misdirect. And you think you see the nun, but then the actual one comes from almost like Exorcist 3 style, for anyone who knows that jump scare, you know, like with the shears. The nun just kind of emerges very jarringly from the side. Like, people shit themselves, apparently.
Which is incredible. Great, but the marketing for this film was very good.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I do too. But yeah, I've talked a little bit about the opening, and you know, we both agree that that's very well done, very effectively creepy. Where Sister Victoria commits suicide. There's a bit I really like where at the beginning, sort of, when Frenchie is escorting Burke and Irene to the abbey, the castle, whatever, and he's put Sister Victoria's body in this sort of like little hut, which is where he delivers the food. That's, by the way, his relationship to the convent. Is why he was going there in the first place. He was going to drop off some food and supplies. And out of respect, he's, you know, taken off the noose and he's put the body in this like little area where it'll be safe and also kept cold. And they go in, and the body is sitting up, and the head's kind of down, but it's sitting up. And Frenchie immediately is kind of on alert, and he says to them, "That's not how I left her." And there's just, I don't know what it is, but there's that scene, like, it's not, there's no jump scare, I don't think, not that I can recall.
Not in that scene.
But there's something really eerie about that, just right off the bat. Like, the body has moved of its own volition or what, we don't know, but I just really like the line delivery, and I like how the body looks and stuff. I thought that was really good. The abbess, we never see her face, but from the moment you see her, there's something off about her, the voice, whoever the actress is, very menacing. There's like a coldness to it. And then when it's revealed that the abbess is actually dead, and the nun, or, you know, was never there to begin with, maybe the nun was just, you know, playing that part, when she kind of like, she almost shrivels up, doesn't she? And then you just kind of see a slump. And just before she kind of goes, the abbess says, "Oh, Sister Irene is already lost." You know, already lost. And that really horrible voice. It's also revealed that, so throughout the movie, Irene has various interactions with the remaining nuns in the convent. And we realise all of these nuns are dead. There's no nuns left in the convent. And Irene also turns out she was chosen to go to accompany Burke because she is psychic and she can communicate with the dead. She thinks she's been chatting to these nuns who are still here
she
practicing.
Had visions, didn't she, about...
Yeah, she has visions.
A very specific vision which would help on this.
Who's been praying?
All of us. The other nuns.
There's also no reason why the Vatican couldn't tell her that's the reason.
That's the reason why she's going.
We think this might have something to do with those visions that you've had. Yeah.
Don't know why they don't come clean with that from the get-go. Like, leave it a bit of a mystery. But anyway, like...
Vatican doing Vatican shit.
Vatican doing Vatican shit. And all these nuns that she's been communicating with are actually dead. But I wrote it down, like, it's, like there's a march of nuns. And she has this sort of vision where they storm into the chapel and they immediately start praying. And one of the nuns tells Irene, you know, you have to join in and do not stop for, you know, whatever happens, do not stop praying. And I love that moment. I love that scene. I just love seeing like the march of nuns.
I actually do. Did you work out the first time you watched it that the nuns were going to be dead?
No.
I did.
I didn't the first time.
Unless that place had been repopulated quite quickly from the beginning. I had a feeling that was going to be a twist. Whether or not it was Valak tricking or it was generally the spirits of the nuns. I think there's arguments for both. Like maybe the whole thing was an elaborate ruse by Valak to like break her spirit to know that she actually is alone. But then, to go back to your previous point, because Valak does attack her while they're praying, and is attacking nuns. They're flying everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, he could have absolutely stopped her.
Yeah.
When she took her vows.
Yeah, that would have been a prime moment for Valak to intervene and be like, not on my watch.
But we know he kind of wants it. He wants someone to possess.
Yes, ultimately, like that's the end goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of cool moments throughout the movie that I think work really, really well. Also, the nun that Irene chats to a lot throughout the movie that she kind of befriends, and the one that warns her about the history of the Abbey, met James Wan on the movie, and they got married. And I, for the life of me, can't remember the name of the actress, but
she was in *Malignant* as well.
yeah, she's in *Malignant*. She plays one of the coppers, doesn't she, or something? Yeah, they're together, and they met on this movie, which is nice. There's a lot of moments that do work. What do you think of the ending, like the final showdown?
It looks great, and the bit where Sister Irene gets possessed, I think, is quite cool.
Mm-hmm.
With like all the other nuns with like their face covered, like there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Obviously, Frenchie's joined the fight at this point.
Frenchie comes back to help.
And it says that what the secret that the Abbey's been kind of keeping is that they have a vial of the blood of Christ, and that is what sealed it the first time.
Sealed the gateway.
And Irene's vision leads them to this vial.
Mm.
Personally, I think like with something that is maybe so holy, I know it's like in a glass jar. Why would Valak even be able to come close to something like that? Because it's round her neck when he possesses it.
Mm.
But
by the by,
I do like that whole seeing the bit in when she Valak is like kicked out of the body essentially, and they end up in the water together. Valak rising from it. It looks really, really cool. It's amazing cinematography, but ultimately Valak is too easily defeated.
I think this is a problem with film demons kind of.
I mean, Valak is quite easily defeated in The Conjuring 2 as well. So now we have
this. Yeah.
My main worry going into the Nun 2 is we've seen Valak be defeated.
Yeah.
So many times.
Yeah.
What is the threat of Valak?
This is a thing I kind of have with demons in movies, and like we've not talked about the movie fully, but we've mentioned it in Insidious: The Last Key. Like they kind of big up that particular demon to be like the baddest of all baddies, and ultimately is very, very easily kind of defeated as well. So I do think it's a danger that a lot of religious horrors have. Like you set up something to be so big that actually is quite easily.
For once, I want
diminished.
the demon to win.
To be honest, I don't think I mind if the demon loses, as long as like the showdown itself.
Do you think someone needed to die in the end?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, we do ultimately make the connection with Frenchie and The Conjuring. Like,
to be fair, when I first watched it, I didn't clock like in The Conjuring when they're doing one of their talks and they're showing a possession
of Maurice. I think they call him in that one. His actual name.
Yeah, like I don't mind that connection.
Oh, yeah, Frenchie is that person.
Yeah, it kind of just bridge the gap between the nun and The Conjuring.
Yeah. So he did eventually die.
Valak possesses Frenchie to escape before getting sent down. So I guess that shows how powerful Demon Valak is supposed to be, that it can do multiple possessions.
Yeah.
Or like hiding within him.
I like the moment in the where Valak is holding Irene underwater and lifts her up because she thinks that she's killed her, or I don't know, like subdued her enough to possess her.
A demon that can't tell when someone's dead.
But Irene, she's opened the vial and she's taken some of the Christ's blood and then she just spits it on Valak. I like that.
It looks really cool, and I'm curious about what those implications are going forward. Like, surely someone who has like partly ingested like the blood of Christ must, I imagine, either become more in tune with her abilities and potentially a bigger threat for Valak in the future. Because surely you're unpossessable at that point.
Well, now I'm kind of thinking about it. When the nuns were all alive and trying to keep Valak at bay, before Valak just kind of fucking massacred all of them, why didn't they do something with the blood? Like, why didn't they like swallow it themselves? Like, why didn't they
use it
something?
Or use it to sealed the breach. It depends on how many of them really knew the full story.
I don't think but they knew they had that artifact.
I don't think they did.
Mm.
Because something so secret. I reckon the Abyss knew. And to me, the Abyss was probably the first to die.
Well, that would make more sense then.
Yeah. So there, I've defended it a little bit.
There you go.
Have you got any more notes on this?
I don't think I've got any more notes.
Yeah.
It's clearly a flawed movie. You know, like we've established that.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of saving graces for it. I think it's a good gothic horror,
Yeah.
and I think what it does well.
Good performances,
it does very
amazing
well.
aesthetic.
Yeah, and Valak is a fun character.
Yeah,
To return
intimidating.
to. Bonnie Irons is fucking phenomenal. I will watch this movie again and again. I do have fun returning to it. It genuinely does creep me out in certain scenes too. And I have a bit of a problem with religious horror in general, not because I don't like it. I just think that a lot of them can be quite samey. You know, like you're either it's possession, it's exorcisms, or it's really kind of like one or the other.
It's the problem we had when we watched Pope's Exorcist. We did enjoy it, but I think we chose not to go and see it because we kind of knew the way it had to go, and we were right.
Yeah.
They do have their own spin on certain things, but
It's quite tropey.
It's forced to go down a certain
Because
path.
we are so accustomed now as audiences to like expecting certain things, you know, in an exorcism movie. And I think it's easy for film. It's a trap that's easy for filmmakers to fall into. But you know, The Nun, I just enjoy the ride of it.
Mm.
I do like your idea that The Nun II could be a revenge movie.
Mm.
You know, Valak deliberately going after Irene.
Yeah.
You know, like there's
For revenge.
unfinished business there.
I don't hate this movie.
No. Oh, you said it's not the worst in the franchise.
No, it's not. It's not the worst in the franchise, and I can get enjoyment out of it. I think just a lot of the things that annoy me about it are glaring.
Do you think it annoys you because you can see how good it really could have been?
Yes. I think that.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it makes me think how necessary was the film.
I think a gothic horror belongs in the Conjuring franchise, and I'm excited for The Nun II, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah.
Have you got any more notes?
No, I would just spookily just like to say that the disc in the Nun DVD is upside down. Bonnie Irons, man, kudos.
Yeah, about as iconic as Joseph Pizarro was.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
As Bathsheba. And he also plays. I can't remember the name of the demon that uses the Annabelle doll, but he did play in the first Annabelle film. He plays the demon.
Oh yeah. Well, obviously he's a lipstick face demon as well.
Yeah. So I can't for life remember what the Annabelle doll's demon is called.
It's been a while since I've.
Yeah.
Is it like malt? It begins with an M.
It does begin with an M. They are actually all these Valak characters. They do come from a real book.
Yeah.
I can't. I don't know the name of it, but it basically goes through like all the demons within hell, all the heavy hitters. So that element I do like how they are basing the demons off real demons.
Mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's if you're interested in it, there's places you can go to like learn more.
Oh yeah, totally.
Don't lock someone in a coffin with the one thing that can defeat you, but ultimately it doesn't matter because he's not going to use the information anyway.
If you do, make sure there's a bell that they can, ring, call for help.
Yeah. So the thing is, he reads the book enough to know that where the seal is and where, well, not where the blood is, but essentially how they defeated Valak the first time, how they kept him down there, but not enough to. He actually does say his name.
You're getting annoyed by it.
I am, because it's really dumb. And that is almost immediately followed on by some more Daniel stuff. And it's like...
It's not having the deleted scenes is...
There's even the scenes with Burke and Irene talking a lot more about... Essentially about religion and about their past experience. That was really good scene.
Interesting stuff. It's a shame that they are lost, but not also because they're on the Blu-ray. But yeah, they should have been in the film. Yeah,
more Valak, and that's what the new one needs to do.
Yeah,
more Valak.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't know how many the Nun films we can realistically get. So I feel like Annabelle's done its course now after 3 films.
I agree. Yeah.
3 solo films and obviously being in the first Conjuring.
Yeah.
I personally think unless there's a reason for the Nun to come back in Last Rites, I think after this film they are done with the Nun.
Probably done with the Nun.
Done with the Nun. Thanks a lot, guys. And we will see you next week.